President of Downtown Partners, and had a nice opportunity to be able to introduce our consultant here several times in the last few days. But I wanted to just tell you briefly that this all originated about a year ago when we traveled, Downtown Partnership traveled to Des Moines to meet with city representatives, and they strongly suggested that our group would benefit by having some outside expertise consultant to assist us with our long-range planning. And the state was very supportive of that. In fact, they helped pay for a good part of our fees in this regard. So, terrific opportunity for us. We are a downtown tax supported municipal district, and what that means is every 5 years we have to go back to our stakeholders and do our work to our stakeholders, and this is one way we do that. It's to make sure we can maximize our resources to accomplish as much as we can for downtown. So what we did next was did an RFP, and we were surprised at the number of qualified applicants that wanted to be a part of this plan for us. And we ended up selecting PUMA, which is Progressive Urban Management Associates out of Denver, Colorado. This was an easy decision. I was on the steering committee, and we made this decision on the first vote. He was so qualified. And so he was hired in March, and since then he's done a number of roundtable discussions, some of which I'm sure some of the people in the audience have been a part of. And we've also circulated a survey, which was also, at least in my knowledge, the best participated in survey that I've seen in Sioux City. And so he's consolidated all of those results, met with our board, and we're putting together a plan for our board. But today, as an added benefit, the owner of PUMA is here, Brad Siegel, and he's going to be talking to us about downtown trends, and I won't steal his thunder, but I think this is something that would apply to anyone interested in downtown and just citizens in general. And I'm glad that you're all here. I think this is really encouraging that there's so many people here today for this. So I'll quit talking and deliver the mic over to Brad Siegel. Again, thank you very much, Brad, for coming here today.
Thanks, Ryan. Thanks, Ryan, and thanks everybody for being here. At 1 p.m., we didn't know if frankly anybody would be done with lunch. So it's great to see the chamber with as many people as possible. There's several things I'd like to do today. As Ryan mentioned, I've been acquainted now with Sioux City since March, and we've been working on a strategic plan for Downtown Partners. A couple things we want to do. One is I do want to talk about different trends that are all over the country and what that means for Sioux City. I think in an exercise like this, particularly when the community may be watching this through the city network here, I think it's important to explain to folks why downtown even matters. So I'm going to take some time and talk about that today and why downtown's important, and it's important really to this region. And then we'll get to the main event, which is Downtown Partners and Downtown Sioux City. We've got results from our strategic planning process. We have results from a community survey where we had excellent participation. And then we've got some implications for Downtown Partners and some initial ideas for them. So we'll go over that as well. And I'll try to do that in about a half hour or less if I can, so that we've got time for questions. Reagan will be the toggler today. Yes, thank you. Can you please advance the slide? So what I'm going to start with are different trends that are shaping cities all over the country. And this body of research is something that our company has been putting together for the last 10 years. 10 years ago, we are from Denver. My background, I've spent about 30 years in downtown revitalization work and started in my home city of Denver back in the late 80s. But in 2006, about 10 years ago, our firm, we were the economists to look at the future of Denver and to really look ahead for the next 20 years and where's our city going. So in order to do that, we looked at different demographic and lifestyle trends that are shaping cities, and it really informed our work in terms of projecting the future of our own city. Then we found that this trend information was relevant everywhere. It really applied to every place we were working in across the country. So the trends, the trend information has become a bit of a cottage industry for us. We update it. I also teach at the University of Colorado in Denver in the graduate planning program there. So we get our students to research this information. We're actually currently updating all this trend info. But I do want to give you some highlights and then bring it back here, bring it back to Sioux City. Next slide, please. So I'm not going to go through that. That's a bit of an eye test on the screen there. But what this slide shows you is that these trends change. So the 10 trends that we looked at 10 years ago are not the 10 trends necessarily that we're looking at today. And it's actually pretty interesting to look back at 10 years. And this country's been through a lot of economic cycles. We went through prosperity there, a big bubble in terms of housing, and then the recession. And now here we are sort of roaring back post-recession. So the trends that are shaping our world change as well. Next, please. So I'm going to start talking about different demographic trends and really focus on 3 generations that are shaping cities right now. And I suspect the influence of these generations we're seeing in Sioux City daily. Next. So the first one is boomers, and how many of you in the room will admit, along with me, that you're over 50, all right? All right, well, I got it. There's a handful of folks being honest here today. So boomers, you know, we're the largest generation to date, highly educated. We're living longer and healthier. Most of us boomers are vain enough to think that we're going to end up like these folks on the slide, you know, that happy, healthy, you know, on a beach somewhere, you know, that type of thing. What's significant about boomers and cities, though, is we were hit the hardest by the recession. Boomers got hit hard on home value and also in terms of retirement savings. That's where we really got hit. What that means and what that could mean for Sioux City is a lot of us now are aging in place. We're aging in the cities that we live in. Also, the older demographic is predisposed to downtowns. We like downtowns. We like living in downtowns. Next slide. Okay, anybody in the room 35 to 50? Gen X. Okay, about half of our room is Gen X. Slackers, right? Yeah, you were bitter about what boomers tried to do. That was some of the initial analysis of Gen X, but now Gen X, most of you have kids. This is where most of the disposable income is coming out of the recession, is in the hand. In this age range, the 35 to 50, you're now taking leadership positions, whether in the corporate world or in local government or in other places. In most cities we're working in right now, we're seeing a generational shift. As boomers start to retire and start to slow down a little bit, we're seeing Gen X sort of come into positions of influence. Next slide, please. Millennials, anybody 20 to 35 in here? So, okay, great. You guys, you're the save us and fix everything that we messed up. Very significant generation, grew up with technology, critically important to the economy. So right now, every city across the country, including Sioux City, is competing for the 20 to 35 age group. I'm going to talk about that several times today. And it's this 25 to 35 age group that just in a few years, just by 2020, in 4 years, that age group is going to have 50% of all the jobs in the United States are going to be filled by that 20 to 35 age group. So just by sheer numbers, if Sioux City wants to be economically viable, we've got to find ways to attract or keep people in this age group. And I'm going to talk about why downtown is so important to that. Next slide, please. And then also now we're starting to look at the next generation. You know, we've heard a lot about millennials, but what about the younger ones, Gen Z? This is the group that is just being born all the way up to 20 years old. They share a lot of the lifestyle preferences. Early demographic work says they're going to be a lot like millennials. There are some key differences. They are much more cautious. They've grown up in a fairly turbulent time. So between 9/11, the 24-hour news cycle, the recession, the projection is they're going to be a little bit more cautious than millennials, but they still are going to have a lot of the same preferences. Also, they are ushering in the most dramatic demographic shift that this country's ever known. So just in 2 years from now, in 2018, this generation under 18, they will be majority minority in terms of ethnicity in the United States. And by 2040, there will be no majority racial group in the United States. We will be a majority-minority country. Next. So the second trend I'm going to talk a little bit about is education and talent, and this goes back to this comment I made about the millennials holding a majority of all jobs here in another 4 or 5 years. Right now, not only are we competing for young folks, but we're competing for a limited supply of young, skilled talent. So these younger generations, the millennials, the Gen Z, they multitask. They're grown up with computers, from the crib. And I'm a millennial parent. Sometimes it was annoying and difficult to sort of regulate that, but it's become a real advantage for them in adulthood. So cities are competing for, again, young skilled talent. And young skilled talent, people 20 to 35, nationally, they actually want to be in downtown. They want to be in urban areas. And that's what's happening to many of the people who grew up in Sioux City. Many of them actually may move to a big city or they may go away to college, and then they're coming back. They're actually coming back to Sioux City, and they want to see some of those same amenities that they've seen in other places. So we'll talk about that in a few minutes. The third demographic trend we've looked at is the influence of women in the economy. So not only do we want a young, skilled workforce, but right now, and actually the last 10 years, almost 60% of all advanced degrees, college degrees, have been going to women. So that young skilled workforce is largely going to be female. And the key message here is, do we have women in positions of influence to shape our city? Do we have planners? Do we have elected officials who are in this demographic and really guide the development of the city, anticipating that that's going to be critical to our economy moving forward? Next. So the next set of trends that I'll talk about that are shaping cities are lifestyle trends, and these are also largely demographic driven. Next, please. So the first one is changing consumer behaviors. This gets to retail and shopping, and I know a lot of people have asked me in Sioux City, well, what's next in terms of retail for downtown? Retail has changed. It's changed dramatically, and it really was fundamentally changed after the recession. And what happened is boomers, my generation, really fueled retail spending for decades, and we were all about impulse. We were drunken sailors in terms of spending money. But that ended with the recession. The younger generation's much more deliberate in terms of how they spend money. Also, particularly millennials, not quite as materialistic as the older generations are. They're much more prone to share things. Sharing economy, you've probably heard of that. You've probably seen it in the larger cities in terms of car share and bike share and those types of things. It's a very different value system. And what it means is retail formats are changing. So for downtowns, a lot of the retail solution is really in local independent stores, not necessarily large chains or department stores. California, that's a downtown Target store that's 8,000 square feet. So a Target store that's 8,000 square feet, that's pretty small for a Target store. So even the large nationals are adapting to these changes moving forward. Transportation and mobility, again, huge demographic changes. That picture on the slide is my friendly millennial there, not really knowing what to do with the car. And driving habits are changing very quickly. So I don't know about you, but I remember when I was 16 years old, the day that I could get my driver's license, I was there. I was at Motor Vehicles, I was in the front of the line, I was getting that license. My kids, who are millennials, they couldn't be bothered. 16, 17, 18, and, finally when they were 18, we forcibly took them to Motor Vehicles and got their license. This is part of a national shift. The 20 to 35 age group, sure, in a town like Sioux City, you got to have a car, you got to get around, but that age group is looking for other ways to get around. So what's important in every city right now is, do we have areas where you can bike, where you can walk? Are there transit options, bus options? These are all more and more important moving forward. The second bullet on there is probably the most important fact. People in their 20s, back in the 1990s, they accounted for 21% of all driving miles. Today, people in their 20s account for only 14% of all driving miles in the United States. So clearly, this is a trend, and it's altering how we think about streets in cities. Next. Health and wellness is another trend that we've tracked throughout this exercise and its influence on cities. There are a couple dimensions here. One is just an imbalance between the demand for healthcare and the supply of healthcare professionals. So boomers, as we age, we require more and more medical care. Meanwhile, in the United States, we're not producing any more doctors than we have in the last 20 or 30 years. So the demand for healthcare is increasing, the supply of professionals is about the same. So communities that have healthcare facilities, and you have an amazing hospital right downtown, communities with healthcare facilities actually have a huge advantage moving forward. And it's not about even how we pay for it anymore. It's just about having the healthcare that's readily accessible. Other movements that are shaping cities that are on the slide, healthy foods. People are more in tune in terms of what they eat, more interested in locally grown products, those types of things. You're seeing more and more community gardens. And here you are. I mean, in Sioux City, you're in the middle of this vast agricultural breadbasket. So are there ways that we could take advantage of that even in downtown? Next. And then the last lifestyle trend is something called regionalism. Back when we started this trend exercise, just 10 years ago, everybody in this room, everybody in your family accounted for about $29,000 of the national debt of the United States. Today, everybody in this room, everybody in your family accounts for $59,000 of national debt. What this means is, forget about the dysfunction in Washington. There's just no money. There's no money at the federal government to spend on some of the things that we counted on in the past. So the notion of the federal government investing in infrastructure, in investing in education, in innovation, the message here, it needs to be regional, and it needs to be cities like Sioux City and regions like this region willing to invest in themselves. That's where cities are going to grow in the future. And there's some great examples of this throughout the country. My own city, Denver, has a 30-year track record of investing in regional investment. Oklahoma City, that's another one to look at that has done some phenomenal work in investing in its region. And what does that have to do with downtown? Well, we increasingly see downtown as leaders in this dialogue and leaders in working with educating the rest of the community on the importance of regional investment. Next. The last trends I'm going to look at are regarding global competition, and I'm going to bring this all home and tell you about implications for Sioux City. Next, please. So this one is fascinating to me. This slide looks at the world's largest economies over 200 years. And if you go back to 1850, and the three largest economies were China, India, and the United Kingdom. Today, it's the United States, China, and Japan. Just since we've been doing this trend exercise, about 5-6 years ago, China actually popped up over Japan. And then back to the changing profoundly. And one of those shifts is how resources are being consumed. So the amount of resource consumption on the other side of the planet is intense in terms of China and India. And yeah, they're in a recession right now, but economists are saying that's probably a temporary condition. That's not going to last forever. Particularly India. That's the one to look for now moving forward. I know we've been fixated on China over the last 5-10 years, but India is really projected to surpass China in economic growth and wealth here over the next 10 to 15 years. That second bullet really gives you an indication of that. So back in the year 2000, China, they accounted for less than 1% of global car sales. Nobody was buying cars there then. Last year, 27.5% of global car sales were in China. United States, we were 34% back in 2000. Last year, we were about 19% of global car sales, and that's in an improving market. So the whole point of this discussion is that this is beyond our control. The consumption of resources is beyond our control. And how we're going to feel that is increasing price pressure on commodities, concrete, steel, those types of materials that we rely on to build things. Eventually, petroleum prices are going to go back up. And that is actually good news for downtowns, because downtowns have existing infrastructure, and it's going to be more competitive to use existing infrastructure in downtown to rehab these old buildings. Huge cost advantage moving forward. Next. Technology, what's the next big thing? It's hard to believe when we first did this trend exercise about 10 years ago, there was no iPhone. The iPhone was developed in 2007, which is astounding. Right now, there are more mobile connections on the planet than there are people. There are 7.7 billion mobile phone connections on the planet. We're doing a better job getting smartphones into people's hands than we are feeding them in this world right now. So that is changing the economy. We've heard about flattening the economy. Where cities can compete, where Sioux City can really get a competitive edge, is it's all about innovation right now. It's about innovation, entrepreneurship, small business development. So downtown, is that the place where we can really create that environment for Sioux City, that this is the entrepreneurial hotbed where these small creative firms want to start and they want to grow? Next. Lastly, the last trend we look at is sustainability and social equity. And sustainability is about keeping balance with the planet. I think we've all heard about that. There's an economic piece to this, an environmental piece to this. There's also a social equity piece to this. And this is about creating opportunity in our community. This is, if you can actually figure out there are issues in the presidential election. A lot of the election this year is going to be about this. It's going to be about income inequality and how do we best deal with that. And what we're suggesting here is, as Sioux City, as downtown starts to emerge and sort of blossom, keep in mind we want to create opportunity for a lot of folks in the community. What's happening in a lot of cities, Omaha, Minneapolis, my hometown of Denver, we're having a lot of development downtown, but it's very one-dimensional. It's really sort of wealthy-oriented. The apartments are very high-priced. So as this starts to happen here, do we have the opportunity to really have a variety of price points and a variety of opportunities for folks moving forward? Next. So to conclude the trends, and then we're going to sort of move into what this means for Sioux City. Overall, these trends are phenomenal for downtowns, phenomenal for downtown districts. And all that information I talked about, there's about 150 different sources that we drew upon for this trend analysis. It really leads us to just 5 basic conclusions, which we think are, again, very good for downtowns. The first one is demographics. Demographics very much in the favor of downtowns. The population is getting both younger and older, and it's the boomers and it's also the younger millennials who are predisposed to downtown districts. They really like being there. They like living there. Secondly, increasingly connected and competitive world. What that means, that gets to technology and how jobs are created today. Jobs are not necessarily created by the big Fortune 500. In fact, the Fortune 500 10 years from now doesn't even exist today. It's going to be a whole new set of firms. So can we create small, innovative, entrepreneurial firms? Can we find our niche? Can Sioux City find its niche in this different, very different and new economy that's very much driven by technology and also younger people? Resource-intensive lifestyles, not sustainable. That talks about all that consumption infrastructure that we have already existing in a downtown. Regionalism is on there, that cities that are going to compete are going to be cities that invest in themselves. So are we going to wait for Washington or the federal government to invest in things, or does Sioux City just take the initiative at some point and get the region together to invest in some of the things that we really need? And then lastly, again, that opportunity piece, that social equity piece. As we grow, let's create opportunities for a lot of folks. Next. So this slide is just my own assessment, if you will, of where I think Sioux City really could capitalize on these trends, where this is relevant. Not everything I just talked about is relevant to Sioux City, but a lot of those things are. So just to give you a few highlights. The first one talks about the rebound wave. Capitalize on what is a rebound wave? This is, again, those young people who grow up in Sioux City and then maybe they go to college or they move to Omaha or Chicago or Minneapolis or, name your city. And then after a few years, they get a little fatigued paying, $2,000 a month for an 800 square foot apartment, and they get a little nostalgic and they move back. They move back for family. They move back for quality of life. They move back because their dollar stretches further. I met a lot of those folks. On my first visit here back in March, I met several dozen what I would call rebounders, people who had come back here by choice to live, and now they really want to be part of the city, of creating a more vital city, and they want to be downtown. So I would argue there's a huge opportunity in this town to really position downtown as that welcome mat, that portal of entry for younger skilled population. Keep it fun, entertaining, interesting. Right now in downtown Sioux City, there's pockets of fun. And I think one of the short-term opportunities is how do we connect those pockets in downtown? How do we make it a more consistent experience and more reliable? This is oriented, and there's not just a bunch of young people looking for fun. There's also older demographic. Boomers are looking for that experience as well. The beauty is we're totally complementary with millennials. Boomers are looking for things to do, for entertainment, for restaurants, anything before 9:30. That's when we want to do stuff. Millennials, anytime the night starts at 9:30. So and this is happening in cities throughout the country. It's all very complementary moving forward. When we get to the Q&A, I could go into more about what we see as different opportunities for Sioux City. Next. So I'm going to switch gears. I'm going to talk about the strategic plan. I will weave these themes on the trends back when we get to what this means and where your opportunities are. So as Ryan mentioned, we've been working on a strategic plan for Downtown Partners. How do we position Downtown Partners, your downtown organization, to best take advantage of these trends and really move the city forward over the next 3 to 5 years? So we've done a fair amount of outreach, and our outreach included, initially back in March, we met with over 120 stakeholders, folks downtown, residents, business owners, commercial property owners, civic leaders, and we asked them what are the priorities for improving downtown. And that's what this slide shows. This slide shows from our roundtable discussions that folks saw a whole variety of themes, more housing, getting property owners more engaged and taking care of their properties and also being more willing to try new concepts with their properties as well. Emphasis on placemaking, which is more walkable, bikeable, green type downtown improvements. And then again, this rebounder thing came up. How do we get these young professionals, these young people moving back to our town? How do we get them engaged in the city? Next. Following those initial roundtable discussions, we launched an online survey. It was out during much of the month of April. There were 616 responses to the survey. Our understanding is that's pretty good. That's a pretty good response to a survey like this. So the survey just asked folks a bunch of questions about downtown. And this slide talks about some of the demographics of who responded to the survey. So it skewed female, and which often happens in when we do these surveys in communities. I don't know about guys. I don't know if we have a trouble doing a survey or not. We don't have the patience for it, but I did skew female, which again is common when we do this. It skewed young, so the response is younger, and also higher than median incomes responded to this survey as well. Next. We asked folks which factors have most items, different improvements that have happened. And at the top of the list were new retail, restaurants, businesses, jobs. So there's an overall sense from the community that things are starting to improve downtown. Things are starting to happen down there. Also on the list, festivals and events. People like those. They like the farmers market. Historic building rehab. Interestingly, when the survey was done, the Children's Museum had just been open for about 2 months, and there was some real excitement about that was a great thing to have downtown and a tremendous asset. What this slide does is we ask folks to use their own words to describe describe downtown of the future. How do they want to describe downtown 20 years from now? And the way that's called a word cloud, the way that thing works is the more times that word was used, the larger the word is in that word cloud. So some of the key words that people used, vibrant, fun, clean, place for entertainment, a destination, all qualities you'd want for your downtown. Now, to achieve that vision, we listed 14 different things. And this could inform the city, this will inform definitely Downtown Partners and their work program. But we listed 14 different ways that we could improve downtown, and then we asked people to pick one. Just pick one of these 14 things that would make downtown a better place. And when you have a list of 14 things where you see a response of 10% or more, that's significant. That means a lot of folks are gravitating around that improvement. So the slide shows the list of top improvements. Number one was the riverfront. was activate the riverfront, connect to the riverfront. About 19% of our respondents chose that. And then the next three are all about attracting new businesses to downtown, really creating more vitality through more restaurants, through nightclubs, startups, innovation businesses, also service businesses. If people are going to live down here, they need some basic services. So neighborhood services, whether that be grocery or laundry or what have you. So a lot of emphasis on new business development for downtown, that would be a top priority. A new image or brand was the fifth priority. In sixth place there was parking, which is interesting to me. We work in a lot of towns in the Midwest. Parking's usually a big beef for people. Here, not so much. People are more concerned about having things to do down here, about the riverfront. Parking's a secondary issue. And then if you really pick it apart, which we did in the survey, if you look at different ages and how they respond, parking's an issue for my generation, for people over 50. People under 35, not an issue, not a big deal. Let's move on. And then last couple slides here. After giving folks the list of 14 improvements, we said, okay, just give us one that may not have been on the list. What one thing would you do to improve the area? And you'll see a lot of the same themes popped up again. So restaurants popped up, riverfront, free parking, of course, and a few other items. Next slide, please. So this I believe is the last slide, and then we'll get into last two slides actually. So we'll get into questions after this. This slide looks at the implications for downtown partners. So what sort of restructuring should happen for downtown partners, for your downtown organization? Your downtown organization, it is funded by an assessment that property owners pay into. It currently has 4 areas of focus in terms of different committees. What we're suggesting moving forward is to actually streamline that a little bit and have 3 new areas of focus for the organization. And how many of you in the room, how many of you are involved in a downtown partner task force? Okay, so about half of you. So the good news is you still got something to do. We still are going to have task forces, but we're actually going to collapse 2 into 1, and then we're going to sort of reorient some of the other ones. That's what we're proposing. So the first one up there called community, what that is really mobilizing all the different voices that are downtown to be more influential in terms of moving forward. So property owners, business owners, residents, also these young people that are moving back to town or keeping them in town. How do we mobilize them to really help shape downtown and how it grows? So there are several ideas on. Secondly, become a portal of entry for young people that are moving back to town or who want to stay here, and provide information on a variety of things. How do I get a job downtown? How do I find a place to live? Where do I go to have fun? Is there a social circle, or are there social circles that I should be plugged into? So on a very intimate level, we're saying we're recommending that downtown partners really start providing that help in that 20 to 35 age group in particular. The second column there, economy, that's about attracting new investment. So attracting jobs, businesses, also housing falls into that, getting more housing built here. And this is where we see a change in the staff role for downtown partners. More of an emphasis in helping small businesses. So how can we coach small businesses in terms of startup? Can we work with property owners so that property owners understand that some of the new business concepts need different types of leases, they need different types of space. It's not the same type of situation as it was 5, 10, 20 years ago. Liaison services. Is there a role for downtown partners to work on a business person's behalf to resolve a development review or a permit or something like that? So that's a fairly significant new role and use of resources for downtown partners moving forward. And then the third column is environment, and this is where there's currently a livability and a transportation group within downtown partners. We're suggesting they merge into one, and they focus on these different sort of physical and public realm issues, if you will. So the riverfront becomes a key focus of this, making downtown more walkable and bikeable, becomes part of this. And the role that the downtown organization plays is primarily in policy, advocacy, and design, really working with the city and other partners to try to make some of these changes happen. So last slide, I believe. Yes. So bottom line of this whole presentation and this whole exercise actually is what an amazing window of time here for downtown. Never in anyone's lifetime in this room have all these background trends, these demographic and lifestyle trends really favored downtowns like they do today. And I'll be leaving here later today, and we'll be putting together our strategic plan. But I as an outsider, I leave here extremely optimistic for Sioux City, but particularly for your downtown. I think you're just on the edge. You've seen some real positive things happen in the last 5 or 10 years, and the next 5 or 10 years should be just extraordinary for the community. So, with that, I don't know where we are on time, Ryan. What time is it?
1:37.
1:37. So that means we have 23 minutes, right, for questions. So if there are any questions or comments, happy to take them. Questions and comments on anything. So whether it's the trends or some of the ideas for downtown partners. Yeah.
Can you give us an example of a city that you've maybe done recently and how they are today?
So the question was an example of a city we've worked in that has transformed, I'm assuming. Wow. I'll give you a couple. The one I've lived through, and I realize it's a big city, but it's Denver. That's my hometown. And back in the 60s and 70s, when I grew up in Denver, it was a dump. I mean, it was not a great place. It was sort of a one-dimensional office park, and the only purpose we had for downtown Denver when I was a teenager was cruising. We'd all go down there cruising on 15th and 16th Street on Friday and Saturday nights. That was it. You go there today, it's a different world. There's 20,000 people now living in downtown Denver. There's traffic on the weekends going into the city, not out of the city. Amazing things to do. Businesses are thriving. It's one of the top markets in America. When I came here on this trip, when I flew to Omaha to be here with you for the first time, I took the train to the airport, which is mind-blowing, frankly, growing up in a town like Denver, and then all of a sudden you walk on a train and you get off at the airport. So I put Denver at the top of the list. If you want a city that's a little more comparable, maybe, I'll actually give you a couple examples. One that we're working in right now that is transforming before our eyes is Rapid City. And I don't know, I assume like most people, if you've been to Rapid, it's probably as a pass-through on your way to the tourist attractions there. And what Rapid has formed it into a town square, and they have activated that thing. They have, I don't know, 150, 200 events a year on that town square. They have an ice skating rink in the winter. It has become the community living room, if you will. And it is transforming that town, and it's creating an identity for that town that never was there. And then the last example I'll leave you with is Springfield, Missouri, where I have worked over 20-some years in Springfield. I never thought, these trends we talked about, I never thought it would get to the Ozarks, frankly. It's just kind of a different world down there. But you go to Springfield today, this is all in play. The downtown is hopping. They have a partnership with Southwest Missouri State, the university there, in terms of tech incubation. They have an old-style town square. They had 4 sort of white elephant buildings around that town square, old department stores that were empty. And they knew their town would be there when something happened to those buildings. Well, the last time I was there 2 years ago, all 4 buildings were in play. 3 of them were being converted to residential. 1 was being converted to an office building. And there's an element of vitality there that I would have never expected. So when these trends get to places like Rapid or they get to places like Springfield, Missouri, you're not immune. I mean, these trends are coming here too. And that's another thing I would mention. I know I'm rambling on your question, but I think that's another thing you should see here in the near future is you're going to see outside investment. So if local property owners and local owners don't see these things, there are folks from Minneapolis or Omaha or Denver where all the deals are done, all the historic buildings are converted, and they're now descending on secondary markets like Sioux City. And that's another reason why I'm confident you're going to see these changes here as well. You're going to start to see outside investment influence your town as well. Yeah.
You mentioned that business space needs downtown is different than it was 5-10 years ago. Can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Yeah, great question. Business space needs, different than they used to be. What are these new business space needs? And they're really different in a couple ways. So I'll start with office. You know, it used to be an office. We'd be leasing, 5, 10, 15,000 foot chunks. That's what we would want to do, and we'd want to get a good credit tenant in there, a good corporate credit tenant in there. And then the way the space was divided, everybody in my generation wanted an office. So we'd line the windows right with office, and the administrative people had to, be pooled in the middle, and how bleak is that? Well, that's all changing. First of all, those large businesses aren't moving around that much. So it's all about smaller businesses now. It's about smaller 2, 3, 5, 10 person firms. 2, if they're under 40, and a lot of these new firms are under 40, they don't want offices. They're not into that. They want collaborative space where they're all sort of working together, and the office on the corner, those are conference rooms. Those are places where they get together. So the space layout is different. It's much more open than it used to be. So smaller floor plates, more open space. And then retail, too. What's happening with retail is more shared concepts. So looking at a 2 or 3 or 4,000 square foot retail space and not thinking of one tenant that's going to go in there, but maybe there's 2, 3, or 4 complementary tenants that are going to work together and do something together, almost a collaborative thing. So in terms of how property owners need to adapt to that, there's the physical components of the space, and then there's the lease itself. These are not big credit tenants that are coming in, so the leases tend to be more flexible. They tend to give the entrepreneur more flexibility on the front end, and the property owner makes his or her money more in the middle and toward the end of the lease. So a lot of changes, and we're seeing that everywhere. That's smaller markets as well as larger markets. The nature of work, the nature of retail is just changing in some pretty profound ways. Yeah.
Brad, I appreciate your focus on regionalism, especially in the midst of kind of federal dysfunction, as you mentioned. I think that we do a pretty good job capitalizing on that in our area. What actionable steps do you think are necessary to further kind of some of those aims that we've had?
So the question was about regionalism and a sense that Sioux City actually does some good things in those areas, but what are some other ways I should about Sioux City? But I do think this notion of regional investment is huge, and what I'm talking about is the willingness to tax ourselves to get stuff done. I'll just lay that out there, and I don't think that's a political thing. I don't think that's a blue thing or a red thing. Cities like Oklahoma City or Phoenix, these are pretty conservative towns, and they have gotten together and they are investing in a whole variety of things. So whether it's your schools, whether it's public facilities that we may need, this riverfront, if this is a #1 priority for the city, maybe we need to get together and do something big and exciting along the riverfront that this whole region could enjoy for years and years. So I honestly don't know enough about you yet to say what Sioux City should necessarily be doing, but I suspect there are some deferred infrastructure and facility issues in this town, like most towns, and that some regional initiative and action would be the best way to just do it, just deal with it. Other question before I get booted out of town here? Yeah.
Kind of along those lines, in other downtowns, do you see larger corporations or anything investing or donating to create these green spaces or anything like that?
Really good question. In other downtowns, do we see large companies or institutions helping to invest in these downtown improvements specifically? Yeah, we do. We work in a lot of college towns, so we see universities investing, hospitals in many towns we're working in are coming to the realization that they need downtown to work because they need to recruit professional employees from cities, from bigger cities. They need to recruit doctors and professional people, and downtown's part of that. Other corporate players, whatever the large corporate players are, we are seeing a lot of sponsorship and investment in other cities. So just to give you a couple quick examples, I know Mayo is a little extreme in Rochester because they are Rochester, Minnesota, but they've invested heavily in quality of life improvements right outside their front door in terms of the town plaza there and a variety of things. Rapid City, I was talking about that great Main Street Square. They raise almost $1 million a year in sponsorships from mostly larger companies in Rapid. There aren't a lot of them, but the ones that are there, they raise almost $1 million in sponsorships to keep that town square active. So they raised money. Half of the money for the town square itself was privately raised from companies. And then the activation of the space. And again, Rapid City, they're smaller than you guys. That's a testament to what they're doing there and the power of what you can do when you get a community together. What time check, please?
48.
What's that?
148.
Oh, we still have barrels of time. So we got about 12 minutes. Any final questions? Yeah.
So have you ever worked in a region similar to Sioux City where we've got the tri-state area and we've got one large downtown, economic area here, but maybe not a similar area across the water, from in Nebraska and South Dakota? Do you have any recommendations for us in that way? Is there anything specific that we can do, as a tri-state area?
Ooh, it's getting more complicated with that question. So the question was, Sioux City is the largest city in a 3-state area. So how do you get people to work together and bond together on these issues in 3 states? Can't say I've actually been in that context, and it probably would make it a little more difficult to do that. However, having said that, I think there are regional authority models that can go across state lines. I can't necessarily name one, but I would certainly want to look at places like the Quad Cities on the other side of Iowa and see how the Iowa and the Illinois cities there and the Quad Cities, see what they've done together. I suspect there's some other cities on state lines, but I other because that may be super challenging. You might be better served trying to get some sort of regional authorities structured that have the power and the ability to go over state lines and work with local jurisdictions. Change is happening from local government. If someone really wants to change their community, that's where we encourage them to get involved, is on the local side and with groups like Downtown Partners, very, very focused, problematic it is. So I wouldn't relish trying to get 3 states to agree, but maybe we can get 3 counties or whatever's involved in the math there to find some common ground. One more question? Going? Yes.
With the boomers, they grew up in a time where downtown was the place to be. How do you kind of convince them that we're bringing it back? Because, Sioux City downtown was the place to be in the 50s, 60s, and then it went to the mall and the outside areas, and now we're going to try to convince taxpayers that it should come back downtown. So how do you come full circle and say, we want to bring it back downtown?
Good question. How do you get the boomers on board with downtown when they grew up with a different vision of what a vital downtown was? And honestly, most boomers, we grew up with the decline of downtown. Even in the 60s and the 70s, downtown was already on the skids. The highways had been built, people were moving out, shopping centers were starting to open. Downtown has always been kind of a tough place for us. As a boomer, I think a couple things. One, those of us who want to be back in the city are coming back. There's part of my generation, though, that I'm just like, whatever, and I hate to write off part of my generation. That might sound kind of crass. I think downtowns need to look at the market segments that really are predisposed to being there. And there are a lot of people my age and older, frankly, that if they can't park in front of their destination, they ain't going there. And we can't deliver that. That's an expectation we just can't deliver. So that's why I really urge a lot of cities, I would probably urge this city too, let's focus on the 20 to 35. We know they want to be down here. And then in terms of the Gen X and the boomers, let's focus on the willing. Let's focus on those who actually want to be down here, which I would be one. And frankly, if we can generate enough energy and enough of a destination, if we can get some new businesses and we can make it kind of hip down here, a lot of those others are going to finally come around and they're going to come down here. But I wouldn't put a lot of energy into that on the front end of moving downtown forward. I would work with the willing and with the young, and then the grumpy people, they'll come later. All right, so with that, I think we'll wind down. I'll stick around a little bit more. Ryan, Reagan, anything else we want to say? Reagan, do you want to talk about maybe how folks could get involved in this stuff? Yeah. Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Brad.
Sure.
Everybody likes applause. First of all, thank you all very much for your attendance today. I really appreciate it. We've had a lot of people viewing online, I can see. Downtown Partners is working with Brad now, and by the time our budget cycle comes around for July 1, a lot of this stuff is going to be in the works. So in the next month, we're going to be very busy putting that plan together, matching the budget with where we need to go. Task forces will kind of put that out to the community, those 3 areas that he mentioned. We'll be looking for people to join in and kind of see where their input could lie in those areas and how to get involved and how to keep this moving forward. The board itself will do a 3 to 5 year plan with Brad's strategic plan, and we'll be voicing that as soon as that's all put together, but it'll all wrap around in the next 30 days. We have a link on the website under About Us on downtownsiouxcity.com, where we'll be posting all of his reports, and as things are progressing, kind of keep giving you updates, Facebook posts, everything like that. We're going to keep you very informed in the next few weeks to make sure that everybody kind of keeps on track, and any questions are answered. If anything wasn't covered today or you want further input, please let us know, let me know, call the office. We've been through this for the last month and we can give you everything we've got. So thank you again, and if you have any questions, let us know. Thank you. Questions? We've got to do some. We'll get how many?
All right, have a good flight back.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, you do? Okay, May 23rd. Here.
Oh, from Denver? Yeah, imagine it. Next time you're there, you go right to your